Fate of 7 Sailors who were left on the Island of St. Maurice, by Anonymous. This is recorded to celebrate the 7th anniversary of LibriVox. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Fate of 7 Sailors who were left on the Island of St. Maurice. The Dutch who frequented the northern regions during the more favourable season of the year, in pursuit of the whale fishery, became desirous of ascertaining the state of different places while winter prevailed. Various opinions were entertained concerning this subject, and astronomers wished to have their sentiments regarding certain natural phenomena either realised or controverted. Besides, a more important object was concealed under these ostensible reasons, namely, whether the establishment of permanent colonies in the most remote parts of Greenland was practicable. A proposal was therefore promulgated through the Greenland fleet for 7 seamen to offer to remain a winter in St. Maurice's Island, and also for other 7 to winter in Spitzbergen. We are not acquainted with the inducements held forth, but it is probable that little hesitation ensued, for we find a party prepared to winter at the different places specified nearly about the same period. 7 of the stoutest and ablest men of the fleet having accordingly agreed to be left behind, their comrades sailed from St. Maurice's Isle on the 26th of August, 1633. The people, 2 days afterwards, shared half a pound of tobacco, to which they restricted themselves as a weekly allowance. At this time there was no night, and the heat of the sun so powerful through the day that they pulled off their shirts and sported on the side of a hill near their abode. Great abundance of seagulls frequented the island, and the seamen made a constant practice of seeking for vegetables growing there for salad. Towards the end of September the weather began to be tempestuous, and in the earlier part of October their huts were so much shaken by violent storms of wind that their nightly rest was interrupted, but they did not resort to firing until the 9th of that month. About a week subsequent, 2 whales were cast ashore, and the seamen immediately endeavoured to kill them with harpoons, lances, and cutlasses, but the tide flowing enabled them to escape. As winter advanced, bears became so numerous that the people durst scarce venture abroad from their huts towards night, but in the daytime some were occasionally killed, which they roasted. Several of these animals were so strong, however, that they would run off after being shot through. A great many gulls were also seen on the seaside, which retired every night to the mountains, their usual place of retreat. The 1st of January, 1634, was ushered in with dark and frosty weather. The seamen, after wishing each other a happy new year and good success in their enterprise, went to prayers. 2 bears approached very near their huts, but the darkness of the day and the depth of the snow rendered it impossible to take them. Not long afterwards the seamen were more successful, and, having shot one, dragged it into a hut, where they skinned it. From the 1st of February these animals became very shy, and were seldom seen. In the month of March all the people were attacked by scurvy, owing to the scarcity of fresh provisions, and their spirits sunk with the progress of the disease. Only 2 were in health on the 3rd of April, while the rest were extremely ill. 2 pullets were at their request killed for them, no more being left, and as their appetites were pretty good, the others entertained hopes of their convalescence. The whole seldom left their hut to examine the appearance of the sea or the surrounding country, but, on the 15th, they observed 4 whales in a neighbouring bay. The clerk was now very ill, and died on the 16th, whereupon the surviving mariners invoked Heaven to have mercy on his soul, and also on themselves, for they suffered severely. No fresh provisions whatever were left, and they daily grew worse, partly from want of necessary articles, and partly from the excessive cold. Even when in health they could scarce keep themselves in heat by exercise, and when sick, and unable to stir from their huts, that remedy was at an end. Disease made rapid progress among these unfortunate people, so that on the 23rd not more than one individual could give an account of the rest, which is done in these words of his journal: "We are by this time reduced to a deplorable state, none of my comrades being able to help himself, much less another. The whole burden therefore lies on my shoulders, and I shall perform my duty as well as I am able, so long as it pleases God to give me strength. I am just now about to assist our commander out of his cabin. He thinks it will relieve his pain, for he is struggling with death. The night is dark, and wind blowing from the south." Meantime the Dutch, who repaired in the summer season to Greenland, became impatient to learn the fate of the 7 men left in the Isle of St. Maurice. Some of the seamen got into a boat immediately on their arrival, on the 4th of June 1634, and hastened towards the huts. Yet, from none of the others having come to the seaside to welcome them, they presaged nothing good, and accordingly found that all the unfortunate men had breathed their last. The first, as has been seen, expired on the 16th of April 1634, and his comrades, having put his body in a coffin, deposited it in one of the huts. The remainder were conjectured to have died about the beginning of May, from a journal kept by them, expressing that, on the 27th of April, they had killed their dog for want of fresh provisions, and from its termination on the last of this month. Near one of the bodies stood some bread and cheese, on which the mariner had perhaps subsisted immediately preceding his decease. A box of ointment lay beside the cabin of another, with which he had rubbed his teeth and joints, and his arm was still extended towards his mouth. A prayer book, which he had been reading, also lay near him. Each of the men was found in his own cabin. The Commodore of the Greenland fleet, having got this melancholy intelligence, ordered the 6 bodies to be put into coffins, and, along with the 7th, deposited beneath the snow. Afterwards, when the earth thawed, they were removed and interred on St. John's Day, under a general discharge of the cannon of the fleet. End of Fate of 7 Sailors who were left on the Island of St. Maurice, by Anonymous.